To kick off our countdown at spot 20, you absolutely have to watch Monster. Imagine you're a genius brain surgeon with a split-second life-altering choice to make. Do you save a dying, nameless little boy? Or the wealthy city mayor who just got rushed into your ER? Our main man, Dr. Tenma, chooses the kid. It's the moral, heroic thing to do, right? Well, fast forward a few years, and it turns out that sweet little boy grew up to become Johan, a terrifyingly charismatic, manipulative monster of a serial killer. Now, racked with pure guilt for literally saving the devil, Tenma drops his scalpel, goes on the run as a fugitive, and starts hunting down his former patient. This isn't your typical high-speed, flashy anime. It's a massive, slow-burn psychological masterpiece that plays out like a prestige live-action crime drama. Every single side character feels incredibly real, and the tense cat-and-mouse game between these two will have you constantly on the edge of your seat. Honestly, it's one of the greatest thriller stories ever told, period. If you want something mature that'll genuinely mess with your head, you've got to start this tonight. Coming in at number 19, we've got a masterpiece that completely redefines what an action epic can be, and that's Vinland Saga. The setup here is incredibly raw. You have a young boy named Thorfinn who watches his legendary warrior father get brutally murdered by a mercenary leader named Askeladd. Consumed by pure rage, he joins his father's killer's crew, fighting on the front lines of bloody Viking wars just to earn the right to a formal duel. But this isn't some cheap power fantasy where revenge feels awesome. It's a heavy, gorgeous, and emotionally devastating look at the actual cost of violence. While the first season delivers some of the most fluid, jaw-dropping tactical action you'll ever see, the real magic happens when the story pulls the rug out from under you. It forces these characters to confront their trauma, their guilt, and the hollow emptiness of a life built on murder. It's got one of the most stunning character arcs in fiction, and it's a must-watch for anyone who wants a mature story that genuinely has something profound to say. Coming in at number 18, we have to talk about the absolute gold standard of dark fantasy, Berserk. Look, if you want a story that doesn't hold back, this is the mountain everyone else is trying to climb. The legendary Kentaro Miura crafted something truly special here. It starts with this guy named Guts, a lone mercenary carrying a sword that's basically just a giant slab of iron, who gets dragged into a mercenary group called the Band of the Hawk by their charismatic leader Griffith. For a while, it feels like this incredible, high-stakes medieval war story where you watch these brothers in arms fight for their dreams. But underneath all that triumph is this slow-building, suffocating sense of dread. It's a masterpiece about what happens when human ambition collides with cosmic fate, and how much agony a person can take before they break. Plus, the 1997 adaptation has a soundtrack that'll literally haunt your soul. When Guts' theme starts playing while he's staring at the campfire, you feel that deep, existential ache right in your chest. It's brutal, it's beautiful, and you've got to experience it. Sliding into spot 17, we've got an absolute masterpiece that completely blew me away, and that's the sci-fi mystery Pluto. Imagine taking a classic, cheerful story from Astro Boy and letting the legendary Naoki Urasawa spin it into a dark, gritty, neo-noir detective thriller. That's exactly what this show is. We follow a robot detective named Gesicht, who's investigating a series of brutal murders where both humans and the world's most advanced AI are being systematically hunted down. The killer leaves these creepy, staged horns on the victims' heads, and as the case goes deeper, you realize this isn't just a standard whodunit. It's an incredibly heavy emotional ride that'll make you question what actually makes someone human. The existential dread is so real, and the grief these robots feel will absolutely shatter your heart. Seriously, there's a legendary anime producer who literally founded a new studio just to make sure this got adapted properly. And you can feel that love in every frame. Every single one of the 8 episodes plays out like a massive, high-budget movie. It's mature, it's gorgeous, and it's a story that'll stick with you forever. Coming in at number 16, you've absolutely got to experience the masterclass that is Ghost in the Shell, standalone complex. Forget what you think you know about standard sci-fi, because this shows the absolute gold standard for cyberpunk police procedurals. We're thrown into the year 2030, following Section 9, an elite covert counter-terrorism unit led by the legendary full cyborg Modoko Kusanagi. The best part's how it balances high-octane tactical combat with a deeply gripping, slow-burn political conspiracy. They're tracking down a genius corporate extortionist known as the Laughing Man. Someone who can literally hack into people's cybernetic eyes and erase his own face from their memories in real time. The world building's just phenomenal. You've got iconic music by Yoko Kanno that'll give you chills every single episode, and these adorable spider-like AI tanks called Tachikomas that'll somehow make you cry while they debate the existence of their own souls. It's smart, it's slick, and it's constantly asking heavy questions about identity in a hyper-connected digital age without ever slowing down the momentum. If you want mature storytelling that treats you like an adult, you've got to watch this. Sliding into our number 15 spot, you've absolutely got to brace yourself for Made in Abyss. Seriously, don't let the cute storybook art style fool you for a single second, because this show's a beautifully laid trap. It starts with a young girl named Riko and her mysterious robot buddy as they plunge into a massive, bottomless chasm in the earth to find her mother. At first, it feels like this whimsical Ghibli-esque adventure, but the deeper they go, the more the world itself tries to actively break them. In this universe, going down is easy, but climbing back up triggers a physical curse that'll literally tear your body and mind apart. It's a masterpiece of world building where the sense of wonder is totally inseparable from sheer, agonizing dread. The contrast between the adorable characters and the visceral, heavy price of their exploration is honestly jaw-dropping. Plus, the soundtrack's an absolute masterclass that transitions from pure childlike awe to heart-wrenching horror. If you want a mature story that tests the absolute limits of human curiosity and survival, you've got to watch this. Coming in at number 14, you've got to experience the absolute visual and emotional masterpiece that is Land of the Lustrous. Imagine a world populated by immortal, genderless gemstone people who are constantly hunted by eerie, celestial moon beings trying to harvest them for jewelry. We follow Foss, the weakest, most brittle gem of them all, who desperately wants to help fight but is way too fragile for the front lines. But don't let the gorgeous, vibrant aesthetic fool you, and trust me, Studio Orange absolutely flexes with some of the most breathtaking 3D animation ever created. This show is a beautiful, deeply psychological trip. See, when these gems shatter, they don't just get hurt. They lose physical pieces of themselves, and with those pieces go their memories. To survive, they have to patch themselves up with other minerals, which literally warps their minds, strips away their innocence, and slowly changes who they are. It's a hauntingly beautiful, tragic story about identity, grief, and the terrifying cost of growing up. Honestly, it'll leave you staring at the wall in pure awe by the time you finish it. Next up at number 13, you absolutely have to watch Parasite, The Maxim. Picture this. Silent, worm-like aliens rain down on Earth, burrowing into people's brains to completely hijack their bodies and blend into human society. But when one tries to take over our main guy Shinichi, he manages to block its path, forcing the creature to mature inside his right hand instead. Now, he's stuck sharing his body with a cold, hyper-intelligent alien named Migi. Madhouse absolutely crushed the animation here, delivering some of the most grotesque, jaw-dropping body horror you'll ever see, with everyday people's faces splitting open into rows of razor-sharp teeth. But what makes this a psychological masterpiece is the terrifying tug-of-war between them. As they're forced to fight off other ruthless parasites to survive, Shinichi slowly loses his emotional warmth, while Migi begins to grasp human empathy. It's a brilliant, fast-paced survival story that asks deep, uncomfortable questions about morality and whether humans are really the rightful apex predators. Toss in a chaotic, insanely hype electronic metal soundtrack, and you've got a thriller that will keep you glued to your screen. At spot number 12, we have to talk about March Comes In Like a Lion. This show is an absolute masterpiece of emotional storytelling, following Rei, a 17-year-old professional shogi player. He's a literal prodigy, but he's also completely drowning in severe depression, carrying the crushing grief of losing his family while living in a cold, isolated fog. His life finally starts to shift when he's pulled into the orbit of 3 incredibly kind sisters who basically wrap him in unconditional warmth. What makes this so special is how it visualizes mental health. Studio Shaft does some of their absolute best work here, using these brilliant, surreal visual metaphors to show his headspace, shifting from suffocating, icy waters when he's alone to the bright, cozy golds of the sisters' kitchen. It's not some high-intensity sports anime, it's a deeply mature, incredibly moving story about healing, learning to lean on others, and finding a chosen family. You'll laugh, you'll absolutely sob, and you'll come out of it feeling so deeply comforted. If you want a seinen that truly understands the weight of human connection and mental health, you've got to watch this one. Coming in at number 11, we have a show that's pure, unadulterated soul food. You absolutely have to experience Mushishi. Now, if you're looking for crazy action or high-octane hype, this isn't that kind of series. This is a quiet, incredibly atmospheric masterpiece about a traveler named Ginkgo who wanders through a timeless, rural Japan. He's basically a researcher of these primitive, ethereal lifeforms called Mushi. They aren't malicious, and they don't have evil plans. They're just existing in the background of the world, but when their paths cross with humans, it causes some of the most bizarre and heartbreaking phenomena you'll ever see. It's an episodic anthology where every single episode feels like a beautifully written, bittersweet folklore fable. Sometimes Ginkgo can help the people afflicted, and sometimes he can't, and that human vulnerability is exactly why the storytelling hits so incredibly hard. The vibe is just unmatched, from the gorgeous, lush forest backgrounds to one of the most soothing, hypnotic soundtracks in all of anime. It's the ultimate show to put on late at night when you want to wind down, but still want a mature, poetic story that respects your intelligence. Hey guys, if you made it this far in the video, I just want to thank you. If you guys could like and comment your thoughts or what video topics you want covered, that would help us a lot. Now back to the video. We've officially cracked our top 10, and we're kicking it off with Golden Kamui. Imagine a high-stakes, brutal treasure hunt set in the freezing, snowy wilderness of early 20th century Hokkaido. Our main guy is Sugimoto, a war veteran who's earned the nickname The Immortal because he simply refuses to die, no matter how many times he's shot or stabbed. He ends up teaming up with a Sherpa, a young Ainu girl with incredible hunting skills, to find a massive hoard of stolen gold. Here's the crazy catch. The map to this fortune is literally tattooed onto the skins of escaped convicts, and you have to piece them together to find it. This kicks off a ruthless, multi-faction race against a fanatical military division and bloodthirsty outlaws. You never quite know who to root for, because the lines between hero and villain get completely blurred in the name of survival. It deals with heavy themes like post-war trauma and indigenous cultural survival with absolute respect, but then it'll suddenly pivot into some of the wildest dark comedy and detailed cooking segments you've ever seen. It's violent, hilarious, deeply educational, and easily one of the most unique historical dramas out there. Coming in at number 9, we have to talk about a show that is the absolute definition of an epic, and that's Kingdom. Now, don't let the rough CGI of the first season scare you off, because if you stick with it, this show rewards you with some of the most mind-blowing tactical warfare in all of anime. We're talking ancient China, where a dirt-poor orphan named Shin dreams of becoming a legendary general. He ends up joining forces with a young king who wants to do the impossible: conquer and unify all 7 warring states to finally end centuries of endless bloodshed. This isn't just about who can punch harder. It's a massive high-stakes political chess game where whole armies are wiped out, genius strategists outplay each other on the battlefield, and the emotional weight of leadership is heavy enough to crush you. The scale of the battles is just jaw-dropping, and seeing Shin claw his way up from a nobody to a leader of men is incredibly satisfying. Seriously, the narrative redemption this show pulls off by season 3 is legendary. You'll start for the action, but you'll stay for the sheer unmatched hype. At spot number 8, you absolutely have to experience the pure, unhinged chaos of Dorohedoro. Imagine a grim, soot-covered slum called the Hole, where sorcerers from another dimension treat regular humans like disposable lab rats for horrific magic experiments. Our main guy, Kaiman, woke up with total amnesia, a lizard head, and a literal man living inside his throat. So, naturally, he teams up with his best friend Nikaido, who runs a local gyoza shop, and starts hunting down magic users, shoving their heads into his mouth so the guy in his throat can tell him who cursed him. It sounds incredibly dark, and yeah, there's plenty of blood, grime, and wild action. But what makes this show such a masterpiece is how weirdly cozy and hilarious it actually is. You end up falling in love with the villains just as much as the heroes because, between the brutal fights, they're all just trying to get by, pay rent, and eat good food. Studio Mappa did an incredible job bringing the scratchy, industrial aesthetic of the manga to life, backed by a wild, genre-bending soundtrack. It's a heavy metal fever dream with a massive heart, and there's genuinely nothing else like it. Mall score, 754.10 streaming. Netflix year, 2016. Next up at number 7, you need to watch Ajin. Seriously, if you want a psychological thriller that doesn't pull its punches, this is the one. The setup is wild. A high school kid named Kainagai gets hit by a truck, dies on impact, and then just stands right back up in front of a crowd of horrified witnesses. Turns out he's an immortal demi-human. But this isn't a superpower fantasy. It's a total nightmare. The government immediately hunts him down because they want to use him as a renewable, infinite lab rat for horrific military experiments. What makes this show so gripping is that our main guy isn't a hero. He's actually a cold, detached, pragmatic sociopath who only cares about his own survival. And the main villain, Sato, is a terrifying tactical genius who treats domestic terrorism like a high-score video game. It forces you to question who the real monsters are when society starts treating human lives like infinite lab supplies. Yeah, the 3D CGI style might take a minute to get used to, but the fluid, high-velocity combat, those creepy black ghost entities, and the sheer, mounting dread will have you absolutely hooked. Coming in at number 6 is a show that'll absolutely tear your heart out and piece it back together, the 1955 historical drama Rainbow. Now, I'm warning you right now, this one is heavy. It drops us into post-World War II Japan, following 6 teenage delinquents sent to a brutal reformatory. The guards are sadistic, the system is rotten, and these boys are basically treated like garbage. But inside Cell 26, they meet an older inmate named Sakuragi, who becomes their mentor and brother. He teaches them how to survive, how to hold on to their humanity, and how to protect each other at all costs. Madhouse animated this back in 2010, and they didn't pull a single punch. It's a masterclass in tension, But what makes it truly special is that it doesn't just stop at the prison walls. It follows their struggle to rebuild their lives in a society that completely rejects them. It's a story about the absolute worst of humanity, but also the absolute best of it. If you want a gripping, emotional ride that'll leave you cheering through your tears, you've got to watch this one. Taking our number 5 spot is a show that absolutely defined dark fantasy for an entire generation. Tokyo Ghoul. Imagine you're just a normal, quiet college kid named Kaneki. You finally land a date with a beautiful girl who shares your love of books, only to find out she's actually a flesh-eating predator hiding in plain sight. After a freak accident, you wake up in a hospital bed with her organs transplanted into you, turning you into the world's first half goal. That's the nightmare setup here. Suddenly, normal food tastes like literal ash, and you're starving for the one thing you refuse to consume. But what makes this story so much deeper than just edgy action is the sheer tragedy of it all. It's not about brainless monsters. It's a brutal metaphor for alienation. You're watching a kid who belongs to absolutely neither world, forced to hide his identity just to survive. The psychological struggle of trying to hold on to your humanity when society is literally forcing you to surrender it is just devastating. It's dark, it's tragic, and it'll completely grip you from episode 1. Coming in at number 4, you've absolutely got to watch Inuyashiki. Picture this. You've got this sweet 58-year-old dad who looks like he's 80, his family completely ignores him, and he just found out he's got terminal cancer. He's at his absolute lowest point when suddenly a wild extraterrestrial explosion in a park completely vaporizes him. But instead of dying, he gets reconstructed as this insanely overpowered, hyper-advanced cyborg. The twist? The exact same thing happens to a detached, sociopathic high school kid on the other side of the park. What makes this show so incredible is how these two completely opposite people handle having the powers of a god. The old man realizes that saving lives is the only thing that makes him feel human anymore. But the kid? He starts using his new powers to casually take out innocent people, just to feel alive. It's a dark, super intense thriller that explores empathy in a way that'll leave you breathless. MAPPA absolutely crushed the production here, and it's a wild, emotional ride you won't forget. We're down to the final 3, and this spot belongs to a show that is absolute, unadulterated chaos. You've got to watch Drifters. Imagine taking the most badass, ruthless military minds from different eras of human history, like the fierce samurai Shimazu Toyohisa, or the brilliant, gun-loving warlord Nobunaga, and dropping them straight into a dark, gritty fantasy world. But they aren't here to make friends with elves and dwarves. They've been summoned to wage an all-out, brutal war against an opposing faction of historical tyrants. Since this comes from the same legendary creator as Hellsing, you already know the vibe is going to be hyper-violent, incredibly stylish, and utterly relentless with its action. What makes it so special, though, is how it treats warfare. Instead of relying on typical fantasy magic, these historical leaders use real-world military strategy, chemical warfare, and cold logistics to completely dismantle their enemies. It treats war like a cold, bloody science while keeping the adrenaline levels at an absolute maximum. If you want a dark fantasy that swaps standard power journeys for pure tactical savagery, you've got to jump into this one right now. Coming in at number 2, we have to talk about the absolute masterclass in gritty urban crime gangsta. Man, this show is just pure, unfiltered cool from the very first second. It drops you right into a dirty, mafia-run city and follows 2 handyman mercenaries, Warwick and Nicholas, who take on the violent jobs even the corrupt cops won't touch. What makes this so incredibly special is Nicholas. He's a deaf protagonist who communicates through sign language, and the way they animate his signing and voice is done with so much respect and care. It's easily one of the coolest, most unique character designs in all of anime. But the real emotional gut punch is how the story treats its marginalized characters, especially the Twilights. Genetically engineered individuals who are feared by society and treated as disposable tools by the ruling elites. The atmosphere is unbelievably heavy, backed by a legendary jazz and hip-hop soundtrack by Suchi that gives everything this smoky, late-night vibe you can just sink into. Yes, the studio went bankrupt mid-airing, so the ending's famously abrupt, but the incredible world building and raw character drama make it a ride that you absolutely can't miss. And here we are at the absolute peak of mature anime storytelling, and our number 1 spot goes to the undisputed masterpiece, Erased. Imagine being a 29-year-old guy stuck in a dead-end job, carrying this heavy, suffocating blanket of regret from your childhood. But then, a sudden tragedy strikes, and your weird, involuntary ability to rewind time kicks into overdrive, throwing you 18 years back into your 10-year-old body. Suddenly, you're not just trying to fix your adult life, you've got to stop a serial kidnapper from targeting your school classmates, starting with a lonely, abused girl named Kaya. This show's a masterclass in tension, but what really hits you in the chest is the raw, emotional weight. It doesn't shy away from the dark stuff, like severe domestic abuse and isolation, but it balances that darkness with this beautiful, desperate warmth as a kid tries to protect his friends. You'll be on the edge of your seat, screaming at your screen, and probably crying by the end of episode 3. If you want a thriller that grips you by the throat, you've got to experience this. Now that you've seen how Seinen anime masters mature storytelling and complex human drama, you're ready for stories that take those psychological depths even further and completely mess with your head. Smash that like button, subscribe, and click the video on screen right now.